Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. Today we find ourselves in Undead Berg for the 5 millionth time, but for an important reason. I was doing more comparisons between my Re-Remastered mod and, Dark Souls Remastered unmodded, as that is the target version that people would know of a lot, right? And a couple changes. Okay, I still need to fix that fucking wall of that building. I redid this little area, made it more like the unmodded game. Even Prepare to Die, obviously, since they, share the layout 100%. So this is actually like the little. I think this is where you used to have the entrance to the catacombs, if I remember correctly, watching the videos on that, which is really cool. And I put that back because I used to have a building that was like blocking this fucking view, which was a temporary change for so long ago to fix how you could fucking look at oh wait, right here it's actually rendering two different pillar looking things on this side. Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't noticed that. So this one's normal looking. It's only this one that there's actually two of them overlapping. Okay, well, I'll have to look at that later. Weird. The main reason for this view is because I finally fixed. I had an issue here where there was no tower, because in the unmodded game, you can't see this tower because that's where Havel is hanging out at the bottom there. So in the unmodded game, it's literally just a mountain. There's no tower at all. I'll show you the comparison pics. I did quite a few of them on Twitter. And so my additions are all of these trees in the distance. These are the actual map pieces from Darkroot Garden. You can now actually see the exit where Havel is actually going, and you'd actually go down there to meet the, those golems, and then the Hydra. And so that's actually visible from here now, whereas before they would fake it, and you basically almost none of that resembled Darkroot Garden like completely, but it's because it was built for 720p, right? And so no one would have batted an eye because, well, it was 720p. There's no fucking way you're gonna know. So I did end up actually, made a comparison on that, which I will go to show that. Beyond that, I did end up actually, I told myself I wouldn't, but I ended up going back through Firelink Shrine and Undead Berg again for the bazillionth time to check the lighting settings to make sure I hadn't missed anything when I was comparing to unmodded DSR. And the reason for looking at unmodded DSR at all is obviously my target is Prepare to Die. But as I have found out numerous times, you cannot pull in the Prepare to Die settings one-to-one. It simply does not function. There are lighting differences with how the rendering engine works. And so you basically have to look between both of them, the unmodded and Prepare to Die version of Dark Souls 1, and then basically put them in a blender and kind of work it out and test and try some different things to get the look that you're going for. And I don't think it'll ever be perfect because of that process. Also, really cool thing, the slime / goop is back on the bridge. I did do that. It's one of my many things I had forgotten about, and I was like, oh shit, I should do that, because I was actually looking at the map pieces I used for fake Undead Berg from Firelink Shrine, and I went, oh shit, yeah, the goop, I forgot about that. So you still have the additions of like this extra clutter over here of like barrels and boxes. I'm keeping that because I actually kind of like those. And then you have the goop is back, so looks cool. I mean, to be fair, I always thought the goop kind of looked like shit. I did upscale it by 2x, so it's a little sharper. The texture is actually called soot. It's a decal, and it actually just gets applied to the ground there. I think it looks fine, but it was one of my artistic changes that I was like, you know what? I probably need to undo this. Because at the end of the day, you know, I should do what the unmodded game, like, what the unmodded game is, right? Which I think makes the most sense. Okay, what else did I change? Oh yeah, I never talked about this on video. On video, God, it sounds like it's 1995. No, I did something really cool. I'm really happy with. So over here, or maybe I did talk about it on a video and I don't remember. So if I am saying something I already said, too bad. But right here, this bridge texture, you might notice this texture. It is not what it originally was in Dark Souls 1. I've replaced it with a texture here from Boletaria. This texture, famously, I said it in a previous video at some point, was actually used in the Painted World. Well, technically it's not used in the Painted World, from what I can tell. I haven't seen this bridge texture, but this is the Boletaria bridge texture. And it is in the texture files for the Painted World. And they call it something else. They call it like M11 bridge floor or floor bridge. And obviously in Demon Souls, it's in M02, which is Boletaria. And yeah, some reason it's in the texture files. Well, I wouldn't say some reason. It obviously, the Painted World was a prototype for Dark Souls 1. It was like a proof of concept. So it makes sense that they would reuse assets from Demon Souls, and they just didn't end up using that asset. But I think it's cool that it's in the file, so I upscaled it, and yeah, ended up using it there. Actually, it looks really cool. It fits better than I thought it would, but it's sort of a tribute to Demon Souls, because I love Demon Souls. Oh yeah, okay, I can't warp. God forbid. Okay, let's hoof it. Let's take the scenic route. You bastard. So we can see the goop here. Like, the goop is also kind of floating on the bridge, which I'm not like a huge fan of, but it's also somewhat unavoidable. So let's pop down. Ah! Okay. Shit. Okay. Let's run past. So this is how Undead Berg looks now. I did adjust some params. The main thing I changed was the env diff number, which I'll show like in the actual params, back to what it was originally. And what this does is accentuates the detail of the normal maps massively. Which, at first I was like, is that going to be too much? Oh my god, it almost fell off. Oh my god, shit my ass. Okay, shit my ass. Oh my god. This game, I've played it like for over 1,000 hours now. I still get fucked up sometimes. Oh my god. Gee. Holy shit, I thought there was just one of you guys. Oh my god. But yeah, you can see how it really boosts out the detail on this texture here. Whereas my previous env setting, which I'll show you kind of what that means, as, you know, just saying it doesn't fucking mean anything. But that setting is something I learned from modding Demon Souls, where it essentially is like it's almost like a remix of like a song. Stick with me, it sounds really stupid, but basically with the way that surfaces look and how clear they are or not clear and how they're viewable from different angles and whatnot, the env diff setting and the env specular setting for each light bank ID is sort of like a remix on that. And you can change it to like, and not all of them have different settings, so it's not like a quantity. Like if you set it to 100, it's more than if it was set to 50. That's not actually how it works. They actually have discrete options that they made where there's like 100, there's 101, there's 102, there's 103, and then it cuts off. And then it usually goes up to either, then you can select 500 or 501 or 502 or 503. And I had to just sort of goof around and look at all the different settings for the different light bank IDs to figure that out. And so this one is actually what we're using here. And I'll show in the comparison pics. But what's being used here to really boost the surface detail on everything is actually the default one for Dark Souls 1. And let's go to Firelink Shrine, because I am actually super proud with how that came out. Which, before I do, the reason I looked at Firelink Shrine lighting at all, because I was pretty happy with where it was at. I had gotten quite a few comments that were asking like, hey, do you think the sky is like too bright? Or I think it's too bright. And I was like, yeah, that's true. It is. I agree with that. And when I looked into it, I had actually overlooked an entire tone mapping setting that I had changed at some point. And I hadn't done what I did in other areas recently, where I've gone back through to look at the tone mapping settings to match it to unmodded DSR, because the tone mapping settings are very much not transferable between Prepare to Die and DSR. It's mostly the minimum and maximum luminance, which are 100% like not transferable. And so that was actually something that I ended up figuring out. And so, yeah, I was checking for the sky, but I ended up finding out that, yeah, I was actually wrong. And I had Firelink Shrine being a little bit too bright. So, yeah, I went through the settings, and what I ended up with was actually not what unmodded DSR is using, and also not what Prepare to Die is using. It's a bit of in between, where you'll notice, yeah, it's darker. It's definitely darker, which is more accurate to how it was. It was obviously very blue, and I had it be a little bit too bright. But the reason why I had it too bright was to match the detail of the character texture and armor. And the reason for that is that I've been talking in some of my previous videos about how the areas usually have a different lighting ID for the character. And that's important because you commonly will want to light the character differently than you are the environment, because a lot of specular on the character makes sense because of the armor, but doesn't make sense on the environment because it will then look a little goofy. I'm also now realizing this foliage has little spots on it. What the fuck is that? What the fuck? God damn it. Okay, I'll look at that texture. Weird. Yeah, so in Firelink Shrine, they actually use the same lighting ID for characters and the environment, which is unusual for Dark Souls 1. They don't normally do that. But yeah, so a lot of param editing, and it's sort of a hodgepodge between the two versions, taking some of the luminance values and blend coefficient from DSR, but then taking the coloring and whatnot from Prepare to Die. And what I find interesting is that by doing this, a lot of the contrast boosting and the look of Prepare to Die is handled in my mod through the textures, because now most all of the textures you see in the scene here are actually from the Prepare to Die edition. And what that does is they all had better contrast than DSR. DSR was going for a washed out look, and here with these textures, not even param editing as much, which I mean I am, but most of it is done through the textures now. That's where the vibrancy and the color is. Also, the previous change I made of undoing some of my water changes, where I had basically changed the water into the New Londo water to make it reflective. But now that my mod is requiring that visual overhaul portion, that's the material settings mod to the Dark Souls Remastered visual overhaul, which was a mod from like 2 years ago. But it did really great material changes. That's just like a drop-in of the MTD file. So here you're getting the actual texture again from Firelink Shrine. It's a little less clear, but it's still now reflective. It's got really good Fresnel like on the surface, and so really, oh, I guess I died over here. Oh yeah, I was recording a video for Twitter, and then I jumped off into the abyss to end the video for funsies. But yeah, Firelink Shrine, I think I cracked it. I think I've cracked it. It now has all the surface detail I want and the Prepare to Die textures, the blue coloring, the green coloring, but also, importantly, it is now correctly darker. But the detail that you're still seeing on surfaces and then in the darkened regions, that was sort of the reasoning for it being brighter and still looking like a cohesive scene. But now I've gone back through and checked those params, And also I added these light shaft effects. So you'll actually see like these little light shafts. In addition to these white light shafts are actually just a map piece themselves. They're not actually done through an SFX or anything. But I added a goddamn fucking grass. Get out of here. But yeah, now you'll see these little light trails that are now in addition. And that was not how it was in the unmodded game. But that's while I was in the settings, I had noticed where in Undead Berg they will actually use those light shafts. But for whatever reason in Firelink Shrine, they just turned them off. And so that was one of me kind of goofing around going, that could actually look kind of cool. And it turns out it does, yeah. So I'm happy with that. And really, this is an example of me fucking around with these params and being literally engrossed in them for months and months. I'm proud of myself for, I don't know, I feel confident of when I come across an issue. I now know exactly what to look for in the different knobs to turn and the 10 different ways you can do something. The way that DS1 functions, you can literally toggle something in like 10 different ways, and it's really awesome and creatively like liberating once you understand that. Is there's so many ways to achieve a certain look, but it's incredibly hard to balance all of them into a scene where it doesn't look like fucking ass. So that has been my hardest thing. So I really like my additions in Firelink Shrine of like the moving clouds. That is from Undead Berg, technically. I have put the Undead Berg skybox in Firelink Shrine, and that's one where at first I was like, yeah, that's going to look like ass. And no, turns out it does not. I was surprised. It actually just adds to the atmosphere, and you get this like big, long distance of clouds and moving clouds that are subtle, though. It's only really viewable from when you're looking at like this angle. You'll see the clouds moving, where before it was mostly just like a blue sky. Oh, and that was the other change. Something I had overlooked from months ago. I had changed the shadow X and Y coordinates, which basically controls where the shadows are displayed. What angle are they coming from? Are they casting from this angle? Are they casting from this angle? And I had fucked up at some point. Well, not fucked up. I had done this on purpose. I had set the shadows to be casting from the direction you're looking at now, so they'd be coming this way. Because I had seen like the sun this way, because I had fucked something up and there was sun coming from that, and I just had never changed it back. And so now I've altered it back to what it is originally, and now the shadows are being cast from this direction, as they should be, as you see the light shafts and all that coming from here. Now, does it totally make sense in the world? No, because the sun ends up being over there in Undead Berg, but who gives a shit? The world's convoluted, and technically everything is dark anyway. It's all Gwendolyn's illusion, right? And so now you get actual correct lighting, because the shadows are coming from this angle. So you get the bird kind of moving here, and yeah, it just totally twisted them. And I was like, oh shit. So there have been things I've been overlooking, but when you look at the amount of like params that are in this game and each setting, it's absolutely batshit. It's crazy. I also fixed some really good bugs yesterday. I had one of the most productive days I think I've ever had of fixing bugs, figuring out why there was weird looking shit. So super happy with that. But let's look at DS Map Studio, because I want to dive in a little bit more. Actually, let's go to Twitter. I already have Twitter up, which is great. Okay, I have a new pinned post, which updates to Dark Souls Re-Remastered. And this is actually in like 4K. So let me know if you want this as a background, because I have this image and it looks fucking awesome. That's an actual screenshot in game too. I'm really happy with how that screenshot came out, because the new depth of field back here, and then how you can still see the surface detail in Undead Asylum, and then it really emphasizes the updates to the Elite Knight armor. Like, it looks fucking awesome. I'm so happy with how that turned out. So let's do some comparisons. Now, these comparisons are not 100%. I had changed some more things, But the left is unmodded DSR here, and then the right is Dark Souls Re-Remastered. Now some of this has been altered slightly after this. I did this at like 8 p.m. or something, or 19 p.m. Jesus Christ. I was doing late stuff. So one of the things you can notice in the split screen here is the extra warmness in the bonfire illumination. And I think it reacts to the armor better. Obviously you can see the normal map is genuinely so much better for the cobble floor. It also has some parallax slightly. Also pay attention to the little clutter items over here. They're lit, I think, a lot worse in unmodded DSR. And then you can see here they actually are reacting to the bonfire illumination a little bit. And then you can see the lever here ends up being a little bit more occluded in my version, because they usually used like a different lighting ID for this, and I like to have it be set in the scene a little bit more. The other thing is, this is always a funny thing, is you'll notice here where at the end of this little archway is Solaire's balcony, right? When you switch to my version, you'll notice there's a little bit of a difference. Why is this more visible? Well, that's because in this map piece, I had noticed pretty early on the back side of it, because this is basically a sandwich. There's this side, and then there's another side. And I'll show you when I go in DS Map Studio. It's not rendering the other side. And when you walk forward, you'll then see that it renders the whole castle wall here. And that's why it looks a little bit different. It actually is including the other portion of it earlier on, so you're not having that awkward transition. Also, you'll see a little bit of Solaire's, the starting of like his balcony, because they don't render that at all in default Dark Souls 1. And that stretches to Remastered Prepare to Die. And so I fixed that version, or I fixed that little glitch where it'll just literally load in, and I'm surprised more people hadn't noticed it. Which, to be fair, I hadn't noticed it until I started like fucking modding this game and really like going over the world with like a fine-tooth comb. Woof. So this is actually one of my favorites. So this was the comparison between unmodded DSR here, which I still need to fix this texture even in my version. Like, it's so fucking ass looking. But you'll notice here, this is where normally in my version you have the actual tower where Havel is at, because it should be a tower. They ended up just covering it with this sort of rock formation because it was cheaper to do that, and it was 720p, and no one gave a shit anyway. And then in my version, you get the actual tower and the little walkway or little staircase here, and you also, you know, get this little building, which is normally occluded by like this entire fucking tree. You can actually now see it in my version. And yeah, you can see Darkroot Garden and the water, and that's what I was talking about when I first started the video. But we'll dive into DS Map Studio to sort of explain a bit more of why that is and how I did that, right? So here's unmodded DSR, which I actually think their Undead Berg presentation looks pretty good. I don't think they have a bad Undead Berg at all versus like Prepare to Die. Undead Berg is one area where I think they were actually pretty decent. So here, you know, you can see the differences between the Elite Knight set and then my remastered. You have a lot more actual, like, I mean, there's rust in both versions, but I think it looks better in mine, and the surface detail and the coloring and all the Prepare to Die textures are really popping for sure, where in remastered they are just sort of washed out. And that is translated to basically all of these textures because I'm using Prepare to Die ones. And so you can really see the difference in like these pillars. They get way more, I'm not sure they actually look better in my version. They stand out a little bit more, which this weird UV mapping actually becomes more apparent. So I might have to look at that. But obviously dynamic shadow, stripping out of baked lighting, the better normal maps, the different params. Like this staircase texture got a lot of help. Like look how bad that looked. And the normal map and the actual albedo texture was really low res. So here is the Prepare to Die one, which you can see the coloring is so much different, right? Between Prepare to Die and then this is unmodded DSR. Kind of crazy. And then they also had way darker for this texture here. Now, of course, here it's subject to change as well. I've made more changes to Undead Berg since then that I was not expecting to do, but I did these at like 10:07 p.m. and then I started making more changes to Undead Berg, which you saw earlier in this video. That is the most up-to-date look, which I guess we could... Nah. Okay, so let's see if I have any more comparisons. No, I just had a screenshot. I did have a video of me walking around with the favor set. Oh, also, God, it's so good when I scroll through my Twitter profile, because, yeah, I finished the leather set. That is now upscaled and uses prepare to die textures, and looks pretty snazzy. That's old Firelink Shrine. Don't worry about it. Back when I took these, and oh yeah, I announced the goop was back. This was Oscar. I like the screenshot because it's Oscar wearing the improved Elite Knight set. Looks fucking awesome. And then I have my little fluted knight set, which is from the Meowritus, their armor replacement set, which I have a link here to the fluted knight set. But I love wearing it in DSR at all. It's so goofy looking. And I made an appreciation post about Morrowind. So let's go into the two different versions. We have unmodded DSR here, which we will use to show. Oh wow, I never realized they actually had a slight representation of the tower that was meant to be there. So this is unmodded DSR. And let's get to the same view, which looks a little different in my version because they're all white, because it actually hasn't loaded the textures. Let's see if I can load Darkroot Garden here. And then it should load the textures for all these things. Maybe. No, I edited this in Blender, so those probably won't load. No, that did. Okay. Nice. Okay, well, it loaded for some of it, so let's enjoy some of it. Okay, so your default view from... This is where we're standing in the game, was this. And then let's float down here as well. Okay, and yes. Why was this doubled up? Oh, shit. Oh. Really? Interesting. Okay, that was my most recent change was... Oh, I think in my... Got it. I don't need to include this one. I know what I fucked up. Okay, got it. Duly noted. I can go into Blender and edit out this pillar. Duly noted. That's an easy fix. Okay, so here is my version. And that's kind of the split screen, right? Is in unmodded DSR, they literally just covered it. They barfed an entire mountain on it to cover it up. And this is what the Darkroot Garden looked like, which we can go full screen. So this is what you're seeing. This is representing Darkroot Garden in the unmodded game. And it's not great, but it was, you know, designed around 720p, right? And so then inside here is where you have Havel and the actual tower, and you get to the bottom. But of course, in the game, when you get to the bottom, it transitions to the actual Darkroot Garden. And, you know, so here's your pathway. This was the facsimile of the pathway that you would do up the actual, like, side. And look how low-res that tree texture is. And here's the distant, like, this was supposed to be, like, foliage. And they, like, microwaved these trees, right? They look worse, like, in DS Map City than they do in the game, admittedly. They look better when you're in the game. But this is where the hydro would be, and, like, the water, and, like, it's just kind of nothing, you know? Like, really low-resolution assets. And then, obviously, here you can also see all the... These are the real trees that were included in Undead Berg. And then when we actually swap over back to my version, you'll notice that I have actually... I did this so long ago, where I actually switched out all of the flat 2D trees and I switched them over to the Darkroot Garden trees, and I actually placed them manually with these big bushels of trees. And then I actually replaced them all for Sen's Fortress as well. And all of this is for Undead Berg, but when you go into the map for Sen's Fortress, you'll also see all the trees back here. So I did the tree changes a long time ago, and I actually placed I placed all of these trees as well, which is kind of crazy. These trees were pre-existing, but I placed these trees and all of these trees, and yeah, so this is the difference here. So this is still the Undead Berg map. I have to make sure I say that. So this is the competing view now, as you actually have the tower in the distance. You have the entire real look here where the golems would normally be, and then you have the Hydra. And so I brought in all of these map pieces manually from Darkroot Garden, and then luckily their placing worked out because it is the same place in the map, right? They actually have an origin point that is understood in this big puzzle piece, which is nice. But I did have to manually make this wall here. That's all me, and then trees on top of it, because that's the thing you'll notice about these map pieces. They were not meant to be in the same map at the same time. They had to use fake ones because these are puzzle pieces that do not fit together. Like the funny thing is, you'll notice at the bottom of Solaire's balcony here is there's nothing. In the game, there's like this fog that sort of like covers it, but yeah. So I had to craft this whole wall because this was normally not an issue if we switch back to looking at the unmodded DSR. So when you're looking out from Solaire's balcony, they had this little weird crafted side of a mountain kind of thing with like this fake foliage. And so what I did is I ended up replacing that fake foliage and the fake distant message with the actual trees. And so I placed real trees out there, and then I crafted this wall out of like that's been going around on social media. I don't know if you've seen it, where there's a map in Halo where they basically used one rock mesh for the entire map, but they just rotated it and then scaled it. And that's what I've been doing with this one map piece that is like this nice rock wall. You can scale it and use it for a lot of different things. And so I've used it to sort of like glue certain portions together that have like certain mesh holes that are just really dumb, but I should be able to fix in Blender, to be honest. So they were sort of like stopgap fixes. But I've also used them like over here, where in DS Map Studio they look bad, but I promise you in game they look fine. And so I've had to, craft this distant portion of Darkroot, and it's been so difficult. Like, there's been so many issues and things I've learned. One of the coolest additions is when you fly over here, you'll notice, oh shit, where the fuck is the Moonlight, castle? Well, in my version, it's here. You can actually see the Moonlight castle. And it's really fucking cool. It's kind of hard to see in the distance, but it is there. Because here, what they did instead is they just put this weird blob and then like these microwaved looking trees. I think the pathway is really fucking cool too, to see how it actually looks. Because this is the real pathway on the left here. And this is their facsimile version, which of course we have to remember, it was designed for 720p. So, like, it's fine. But yeah, in 1440p 4K doesn't translate nearly as well. So it was necessary to do that. Now, one area I have not really cracked is bringing in the real Valley of the Drakes, because that's actually what's down here. So this is the fake Valley of the Drakes that DS1 uses. And from a distance, like, it's totally fine because, once again, 720p. And even at higher resolutions, like, you're way up here, and to actually, like, look down into the Valley of the Drakes, you have to be on the Hellkite Bridge and then really, like, look over the edge, but even then, you can barely look over the edge. Like, it's sort of a non-issue because it's actually really hard to get it looking even somewhat correct. I could look into this more to bringing in the real Valley of the Drakes down here. And then you have the entrance into New Londo. But But I'll look into that because I've sort of toyed around with that, but it didn't work very well and it looked fucking awful. So I've been doing some work there to try and fix it. But yeah, so that's a little look behind the curtain. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, you know, maybe like, comment, subscribe, share the video if you have anyone that really likes Dark Souls and modding and likes to know the nitty gritty behind some of this stuff and how From Software actually like crafted it. And it's sort of how the sausage is made, right? Which I know not everyone will find interesting, but it's been really gratifying for me to like look and do these comparisons, because it makes me realize how much actual work I put into these the views that you get here. I ended up deleting most of the fake meshes for Darkroot Garden completely. Like, I completely excavated this area and then manually pulled in all of Darkroot Garden and then had to prune and craft it to where it actually like worked, and then obviously learn how the draw groups work so none of this shows up when you're in Darkroot Garden, right? Like that was one of the big issues. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and then yeah, I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.